I wore a rainbow sweater today just for you.
It's like the rainbow sweater,
It's like
though.
the rainbow sweater I got for like $7 on Amazon.
Like forever ago.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Do you think it's gay?
Of course it's gay.
Okay, good.
It's not gay. Get the hell out of here.
Hi, Jillian Benzavali.
Hello, Patrick Hines.
Oh, fam, join us over on the Patreon, but only if you like, I don't know, drag bingo, bonus episodes, ad-free episodes.
Gay shit.
If you like gay shit, if you like cults. We're doing a lot of cults on the Pates lately.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of, it's like super fun time over there.
Well, it's like the Cult of Mother God, Twin Flames.
Yeah,
we're doing the Jinx Part 2, which isn't a cult, but maybe should have, like, kind of was.
I mean, I hate him as much as most cult leaders.
The Jinx Part 2 is wild.
It's pretty wild. Quiet on Set. We did Lost Women of Highway 20. We did that Gacy thing on Peacock. We're doing it all.
You're only mentioning the Gacy thing on Peacock because it factors into Quiet on the Set today, which
you would never think.
Sense.
But it's
but here we
insane.
are. Also, just join the Facebook group, fam. We got lots of announcements and things coming up, and just fun. It's a fun place to make new friends and talk about the episodes and stuff. It's the True Crime Obsessed podcast discussion group. We're at 52,000 members. Come join.
Wow.
Find your best friends.
Okay.
And it's also like a very safe place. Our mod Sasha makes sure it's a very safe, supportive, loving atmosphere.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
Girl, what are we talking about today?
All right, so we are talking about who killed the Lyon sisters.
Yeah.
Nearly 40 years ago, Katherine and Sheila Lyon went missing. That was March of 1975.
The two sisters were walking just a half mile from their home to Wheaton Plaza Mall in Montgomery County, Maryland.
Back in those days when parents were more casual about those things, the mother told them to be home by 4 p.m. They did not return.
Fewer than 1/100% of all missing children turn out to have been taken by a stranger. 2 children taken at the same time, statistically speaking, it just doesn't happen.
A massive search effort came up empty. No bodies, no arrests. The trail went cold.
This was the first big story I had ever covered as a reporter. Over the next 40 years of my reporting and writing career, none of them stayed with me in the way that this one did.
The brides that he didn't walk down the aisle. The grandchildren we didn't have.
Parents were so scared, there was a dramatic shift in how they raised their children.
The coming up on is kind of a lot.
It's a lot. Well, I thought it was a coming up on, and then I'm like, oh, we're just starting.
Me too. I had to go back and take all the notes. So
one of the first things that is said to us is something that blew my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Fewer than 1/100% of missing children are taken by strangers.
Yeah. It's always like a custodial or non-custodial parent.
Someone they know.
Someone they
know. The opposite of strangers, someone they know. But I know it's not always someone they see every day, but it's not like it's an actual stranger.
Not like the Steven Stainer of it all.
Or Amber from the Amber Alert. Yeah. But it does happen.
Yes.
So it's like, what?
I know.
What?
I know. It's so crazy. So here's the backstory. So it's nearly 45 years ago at the time of the filming of the documentary, Katherine and Sheila Lyon went missing. Katherine was 10 years old. Sheila was 12. It was March of 1975. They were walking just a half mile from their home to the Wheaton Plaza Mall in Montgomery County, Maryland. And like they say, this was a different time. The parents were like, didn't feel like they needed an adult with them. The parents just said like, be home by 4 p.m., go off and do your thing. And I'm telling you, like, my childhood was much later than that, but like even in my day, like in the 80s, 90s, it wasn't that different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So we jump around a lot here. So Sheila and Katherine go missing in 1975, but it's now October 16th, 2013, and we're in Dover, Delaware.
Right.
And the cops are like, God damn it, like, we got to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, we're learning about a man named Lloyd Welch, and we'll tell you how we get to him sort of as we go. We meet Mike Bowden, who was the author of the book that this documentary is based on.
Yeah.
He also wrote like Black Hawk Down. He's like a very famous nonfiction writer. But this was a case that it's like everybody involved in this case, from the writer to the cop to everybody, nobody was letting this go until it was solved, right?
Especially Detective Dave, who is with us. And he is on the Lyon Sisters Cold Case Squad.
Right.
The police had turned over just about every stone. Nearly all the suspects were dead. They had at last somebody still living who might be able to help them.
You're what we have left.
So over the years, like all of the suspects in the case had died. And the cops are trying like anything and everything. Like the girl's parents are almost 80 years old.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
No.
And the cops are looking at what they're calling the most notorious child predators in their files, like a guy named Ray Molesky.
So this Ray Molesky guy, they're able to put him about 2 blocks from the Lyon family home about a week before the girls were abducted. To them, this Molesky guy looks like the best suspect for the person who abducted and very likely killed the Lyon sisters.
He was also part of what they call a child sex ring. So rotten hell forever, Ray. Fuck you.
Oh my God.
I'm so glad you're dead. I hope you're in pain right now. A child sex ring.
Yes. And so this Detective Chris guy, there's Detective Chris and Detective Dave. Detective Chris had said he'd been chasing a dead Ray Molesky for years. And one night he just kind of realized he was done. He couldn't do it anymore. And as he's about to put the file boxes away, he stumbles upon a statement he had never seen before.
Which was weird because I knew every piece of paper in the 20 boxes that was the Lyon sisters case file. And I've never seen this statement before. To this day, I don't know how that got there. It just seems like it was meant to be.
To this day, I don't know where it came from.
Right. So
he says it had to have been meant to be.
Right. Like, because you can't imagine he's going through the boxes every day for 40 years or whatever and just missed it every single time.
It's weird that the minute he was like, I just think, like, it breaks my heart, but I just don't know where we are. Like, it's almost 40 years old. I don't know what to do. And suddenly here it is. Like, I'm sorry, believe in whatever, but something is at work here.
Right. So this is Lloyd Welch. It's a statement from him back when he was a teenager in 1975 that he gave to the Montgomery County Police saying...
What interested Chris was at the end of this statement...
There was one line that caught my attention. What the person looked like who abducted the Lyon sisters. The man walked with a limp. Ray Molesky walked with a pronounced limp. Maybe Lloyd Welch was an eyewitness to Ray Molesky taking the girls.
So, like, he was saying, I was at the mall the day these girls were kidnapped, and I watched it happen.
Yeah. And the guy they were walking with, this guy had a limp. And I'm like, oh, this Ray piece of shit, who's dead now, thank God, also had a limp.
Right. And so the reason Lloyd Welch made this statement is because at the time, there was reward money. So there was an incentive. So, like, basically, everything in his statement, we're going to learn almost everything in his statement is made up. And he was making it up, hoping that he would somehow find his way to being entitled to the reward money.
But they're like, you know what? Let's look into Lloyd Welch just to make sure.
Yes.
He's in prison. He has a long rap sheet. A lot of them are offenses against children.
Well, but that really stands out to the officers because they're like, wait a second. They didn't know who Lloyd Welch was when they were reading the statement. They look him up. He's in prison for like offenses against children.
So what they know about this guy, Ray, who's dead, is that Ray would use teenage boys to lure young girls.
Yes.
And then Ray would assault them. So the cops are like, was this Lloyd guy who came out of nowhere? Like, was he one of those teenagers? Let's go and talk to him. Dear listener, the cops have 9 interviews with this guy. Not once does he ask for a lawyer, thank God.
No.
Stay stupid. But this is the first of 9.
And just to be clear, Ray Molesky is like the child molester that is dead, that they were like, he looks really good for this. Lloyd Welch is the guy who gave the statement that they just stumbled upon.
That they just discovered.
So they go to see him. It's October 16th, 2013, the very first interrogation with Lloyd Welch.
And Lloyd Welch is the guy we're staying with the whole time.
Yeah. And so like the thing is, like Jillian is saying, he never asked for a lawyer. He just sits down. This fucking idiot is about to be up for parole. He could be going home tomorrow.
Yep.
And you would think he'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I am not getting involved in this. I have nothing to do with this. I'm going to sit in my cell and pray for parole. That is not what happens.
Now, right now, all the cops want from Lloyd is to identify the guy, Ray, who's dead.
Right.
All they want, because at least they can close the case. Because they're like, it's Ray. Ray's our guy. This is it. Lloyd, please just like do us a solid. You're about to be out on parole. It's Ray, right?
Right.
It's Ray.
Just
it's
say
Ray.
that like when you gave the statement saying you saw the girls being led away with the guy with the limp is Ray Molesky, right? That's all we need.
And that's kind of what happens in this first interview at first.
Which is suspicious because they pull out a picture of this Ray Molesky guy, they put it down, and instantaneously Lloyd Welch is like, that's the guy.
Oh my God, that's him. Oh my God.
This happened 40 years ago.
Right.
And like he saw this guy for 8 seconds 40 years ago, and he's like, that's the fucking guy.
However, this is still a different story than he told in 1975.
1975, he's literally saying that he's at the mall watching this thing happen in the parking lot. He didn't realize that we actually had the statement from 75, but he was really thrown through a loop when it was presented to him.
Lloyd Welch, who gave the statement in 1975, doesn't know the cops have the statement, and he doesn't remember ever giving one.
Now, of course, like, this is 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not that crazy that, like, oh, some of the details are a little off.
Well,
like,
especially because it didn't happen. Like,
right.
What he's saying he saw, he didn't see, so he doesn't actually have a real memory of this.
Right, but, like, for him to be like, oh, I was on the curb of the parking lot in the mall versus I was on the curb by the liquor store.
Yes.
Like, that kind of mistake is fine. I have to tell you something. Memories are weird things.
Yes, of course.
I recently had to put together like a timeline of events. I could have sworn like something happened before another thing happened.
Yeah.
And I was wrong.
Yeah.
And like those things happened like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I had the privilege of having like calendar events and things I could go back and check. I wasn't rotting in prison for offenses against children. So I'm
not you.
Not like I'm giving this guy the benefit of the doubt. I'm just saying the memory is a very odd thing.
Yes.
That's all. That's
so
it.
We're going to go back now to March 1975, the Wheaton Plaza Mall. This is the day the girls were abducted, right? Many people that day saw a male with a tape recorder, like walking around interviewing and tape recording kids. Like, once again, 1975, how many kids are at the mall completely unaccompanied by adults?
Yeah. And the cops are like, this guy is Ray, who's dead.
It's got to be Ray
gotta
Molesky, yeah.
And witnesses saw a teenager following the same kids around that were doing like the little interviews. So the cops are like, okay, here's what happened. Ray is interviewing them, and this teenager, like luring the kids, it has to be Lloyd, who we're talking to now.
The thing is, there's a composite of the second guy that was never released to the public, but it looks exactly like Lloyd.
Yeah.
And so when we meet a woman who was at the mall.
I was shopping at Wheaton Plaza, and there was this man in front of the door of a women's clothing store. And I see Sheila and another girl that was younger, and I figured that must be her younger sister. He was interested in her big time. I mean, if he was a dog, he would have been salivating.
If he was a dog, he would have been salivating.
Dee Danner, witness.
Yes.
Thanks,
yes.
Dee.
So this is the first inkling that, like, maybe Lloyd is more interested in the girls here than he's letting on.
Right. And Lloyd, in 2013, like, as we're watching this interview, is insisting he was never at that mall. And the cops are like, right, but he's lying and we know it. And he has to know that we know it.
Right. Exactly.
So now what? So they give Lloyd his statement from 1975.
And then they do that thing where they get up and they're like, we're going to give you a minute to read this on your own. He doesn't know that he's being filmed and recorded and that there's a closed circuit TV showing his interview room to cops that are watching it in another room. This guy fucking Robert Durst.
Yeah, he's reading it and giving commentary aloud in real time.
Oh, they got me. Oh, they got me.
Oh, they got me. Oh, God, I'm caught. Oh, God, I lied about that, like, completely. So then they come in, and he really, we'll get into it later, but he,
they got me.
Fuck, they got me.
Oh, they got me.
He really likes Detective Dave.
Yes.
Detective Dave is his favorite cop that he talks to. He will change. He'll get happier when Dave is in the room. He likes Dave. He trusts Dave.
Yes.
So when Dave comes back, Lloyd's story changes.
Right.
Oh, no, he just read a statement, and now he's going to play it cool. Like, we haven't watched him say, oh, my God, they got me. I'm caught. Killed them all, of course, literally. Right. So now he's like, you know what?
Sorry, you're going to have to do it.
I'm not doing it for 11 episodes.
Come on.
He said, kill them all, of course. So now
she made me beg for it.
So now Lloyd's story changes. Oh, wait. Yes, I was at the mall.
Yes.
But I was there with my girlfriend, Helen.
Right.
And now me and my girlfriend saw this creep Ray that you think did all this with the Lyon sisters. And yes, actually, he had a tape recorder.
Yep.
So now he's just regurgitating.
And he says, he's like, we saw him talking to the girls. We left. I felt really uneasy about it, like, all week, which is why I went back and made a statement to the cops. And then he says, I know what you're thinking because I just lied to you a minute ago and I was actually at the mall that day. I absolutely must have been involved with this, but I swear to God, I absolutely was not.
And they're like, of course you weren't, Lloyd. We totally trust you. One question. Right. What do you think Ray did to the girls?
Yeah.
Though? My opinion is that he killed them. He raped them, he killed them. Probably burn them. I don't know.
Everybody assumed that the girls were abducted, that the girls were raped and somehow killed. Why be that specific and say burned up? It didn't make sense to us until later on.
It's a very specific thing to say. He could have said, I have no idea, and that gives me nightmares.
Which is what any person who wasn't involved would have said.
But he gives...
Why would you speculate the most horrible fucking thing you can imagine?
Right, and 3 horrible things.
Yeah.
The assault, the murder, and the aftermath. And it's like, and the cops are immediately like, okay, Lloyd is now a person of interest.
Yes.
Welcome to February 2014. Lloyd is officially a person of interest.
And guess what? That was only his first time talking to the cops. He does it 5 more times, never asked for a lawyer.
9.
Is that right?
It's a total of 9 interviews.
Oh my God. Stay stupid.
Because he just wants to hang out with Dave.
Yeah.
He likes, and that's the thing. He likes Dave. And like, he feels a captive audience in Dave.
No, you're right.
And so he just sort of tells more things.
Fam, I know you're hearing a lot about Dave, but pretty soon you're gonna get to meet No Time for Your Shit, Katie.
I love her.
She is the best.
And you know who doesn't like No Time for Your Shit, Katie?
Who?
Lloyd.
Lloyd? Hey,
and that tracks.
I mean, obviously.
Katie's like, ugh.
I know. So we learn a little bit about Lloyd.
Welch has traveled extensively throughout the United States during the 1970s, 80s, and early 90s. He was employed by a carnival company, often setting up at shopping malls. Welch was a ride operator for the carnival.
I'm sorry, carnivals. We got to do better. There's no background check for like literally a job where your job is to interact with children.
In 1970, absolutely not.
I guess.
And they're just
I mean,
traveling
my
the
God,
country,
pedophiles left and right were getting jobs at Nickelodeon in 1999.
And then,
so I guess
more jobs at Nickelodeon.
I know. Fam, we've been really...
Disney, your time is coming, I fear. So Lloyd and his girlfriend Helen Craver met in 1973. They did a lot of drugs together. We just have to be honest about it.
One of the officers says that Helen shared his interest in drugs and the excitement of living on the streets.
Yeah, which is like, live your life however you want. But they had 3 little girls. They had 3 daughters. So they were like stealing food and money from Helen's mother.
And they also were just like, they were not ever welcome in either of their families' homes.
And I'm like, but the little girls were, right?
Of course.
Because we hear that they had to sleep in Helen's mom's backyard, not in her house. I'm like, right, but the mother let the little kid sleep inside, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you would hope, right?
Right?
I know. I know.
You know what? Probably not.
I mean,
everything's the worst.
And like sleep in the backyard, it's so awful.
So February 2014, Lloyd's second interview, he's been made a person of interest 4 seconds ago.
Yes.
So they're like, let's talk to him again. They give him a polygraph, which we know everything about the polygraph, but they give it to him anyway.
But can I also say, this is where we meet No Time for Your Shit, Katie.
It's Detective Katie. I love her.
Because she's the best. Because she's saying everyone knows Lloyd is lying, but they're trying to like make him understand that they know that he's lying.
Yeah.
And she basically says they have to bend the rules to bring in the poly. Even the prison was like, girl, we don't do that.
Katie snuck it in.
Katie like snuck.
She snuck it in.
She's saying, like, in the beginning, she's trying to be, like, best friends with him. Like, not really, but she's trying to win his trust enough
Appealing
to get him.
to the ego, which they do all the time.
What I was trying to do then was get into what's called his psychological set. I wanted to get into his head, and Lloyd was eating it up. I was telling him what a great guy he was and how I am sure he had changed after this many years in prison. At some point, I probably told him he was good looking. It was all very intentional because I wanted him to think that he was fooling me.
I wanted him to think he was fooling me.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Katie is running the show. Obviously, she's Detective Katie. So he's lying to her a lot. And at one point, Katie is me, where she's like, cut the shit, dude. Like,
yes.
At one point, the performance goes away. And she's like, I know you're lying. And Lloyd doesn't like that. Of course he doesn't.
She says we were no longer friends. And every time Lloyd gets upset, he calls for Dave.
So Katie's out, Dave's in, and Katie's like, I couldn't stand it for another second, so I was glad to tag out.
Exactly.
Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
So Lloyd starts talking about awful Ray's house, Ray Molesky, the guy who's dead.
Yeah. So remember, his story up to this point was that he saw Ray Molesky at the mall with the girls, saw Ray put the girls in a car and drive away.
Now, what he's telling about this Ray's house, Detective Dave is like, I know this house.
Yeah.
He's describing this house
Yes.
pretty well, I think. And it's like a shithole, and there's a basement, and there's a back room, and in that back room in the basement, the door was always locked.
Yeah, and he describes this basement that you have to walk around the back of the house, go down a couple of steps, and he says, I went to Ray Molesky's house, walked down those back steps, looked in the door of the basement, and saw him drugging and raping these girls. So now, Detective Dave is like, wait a second. Welch has now gone from putting himself at like witnessing the kidnapping to actually witnessing the sexual assault assault and drugging of these girls. Lloyd Welch is putting himself more and more in the story.
Right. And the cops are like, well, that could be great, but everything he says is a lie.
Right.
So is this one of those things that's true? We're not entirely sure. Whether it's a lie or not, he's putting himself in this situation.
And the details are specific. So Dave is saying, like, I'm leaning towards this is not a witness anymore. Like, potentially this is our bad guy.
Right. And remember, he likes Dave. So when Dave is in the room, he opens up just a little bit more.
Yes. And so Detective Not Here for Your Shit, Katie, says that she interviewed a lot of Welch's other victims, Lloyd Welch's other victims, and they're like, just like women that he met across the country. And they
like women he was in relationships with, like ex-girlfriends, but they're also survivors.
Right. And they all describe the same amount of drinking and drug abuse, everything from PCP to crack to LSD. They said he would take anything. He often didn't even know what he was taking.
Yeah, he was incredibly abusive. They say, quote, the sex was abusive. They were terrified. He couldn't leave, or when they left, he would get violent. Just a very, like...
And what they're saying is that it's coming together pretty quickly that he's the kind of person who potentially could be capable of abducting and murdering 2 young girls.
Right. So 2 weeks later, March 2014, interrogation number 3. And they're fighting with Lloyd. Detective Katie's there, and she's like, God damn it.
I know.
And she goes,
Lloyd was really plucking my nerves that day.
There's a lot of stuff that you told me that's not true.
Believe what you want. I don't care.
It's not a matter of believing. I believe what evidence tells me.
Charge me or let me go back to myself.
Everyone is in a mood that day. Like, Lloyd keeps threatening to walk out, but he never does because he needs to know what they know. Like, This is the game. They're trying to get information from him. He's trying to get information from them.
But the thing is, Lloyd is a compulsive liar, and he has no incentive to tell the truth. It doesn't really matter.
Except that they start lying to him. So now Dave is saying, like, well, actually, Lloyd, we've been looking into it, and we've found lots of murders and rapes all over the country that you look actually pretty good for.
And he's like, well, you know what? This seems like a good time to tell you about my cousin Teddy. Can we talk about Teddy real quick? Did I not mention Teddy yet? Says Lloyd.
Have we not asked the people to pull over yet? Because the story we're going to get out of Teddy,
awful.
It's mind-boggling.
So what happens is Lloyd is like, my cousin Teddy is absolutely terrifying. I'm scared to even mention his name because Teddy is going to kill my entire family.
When you meet the pussycat that is Teddy, this is all so absurd.
And Lloyd's like, actually, my cousin Teddy was actually doing all of it with some random guy. That guy Ray isn't even part of it anymore. So now it's just like lie on lie on lie.
Every single thing I said about seeing Ray at the mall and getting in the car and the basement and like the sexual assaulting of the girls, all of that was a lie. It was actually all my terrifying cousin Teddy.
Now, Teddy we learned that Teddy was 11 years old at the time of the abduction. The girls were 10 and 12. So now the cops are like, was Teddy the teenager used to lure the young girls, even though he was only 11? Let's talk to Teddy. To my surprise,
I know.
Cousin Teddy is here with us. And I just I can't. This guy is so layered. It's very, very complicated and sad, this whole thing.
It is, but like a terrifying double homicide murderer at 11 years old, this guy is not that. He's not that. So like, Teddy is like everybody that Lloyd is about to accuse of doing all this. He's just here to say like,
Lloyd was somebody that my father told me to stay away from. He was trouble. Tell you what, you give me 5 minutes with him in a room by himself, and I guarantee you he'll tell you anything you want to know. Because I'd beat the holy out of him for even bringing me into a situation like this.
Give me 5 minutes alone in a room with him and he'll admit to anything you want him to admit to.
Right.
To which I said, Teddy, you look like a math teacher, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Like, you're not beating anybody to death in a jail cell.
Right. But like, that's how much he hated Lloyd is his point, right?
Yeah.
So cousin Teddy and Lloyd had awful childhoods. And Teddy says as much. Teddy's father was violently abusive. Lloyd's father was violently abusive. Lloyd was sexually abused by his father. And cousin Teddy is like, I barely knew my family. I wasn't raised by them. And cousin Teddy was sent to a boys' home when he was young.
Yeah. And then right from the boys' home at age 15, his mother sold him to an older pedophile for wall-to-wall carpeting in the house. Now, this is complicated because Teddy, who is not gay, I don't think, or bisexual, describes this relationship with the pedophile as a relationship.
He says, from the age of 15 into my early 20s, I lived a homosexual relationship. He says, I had a lover. He was an older gentleman. This creep's name is Leonard.
Yes.
He's an actual child predator.
Yes.
Now, Teddy today has fond memories of this relationship.
Because, like, it was definitely a sexual relationship, but, like, he was desperately searching for a father, and that's what this man provided. And Teddy says,
I mean, for all intents and purposes, I was his son. But we had a gay relationship. I was no whore. I was treated like a man. and respect it.
I was no whore. This was a real relationship. For all intents and purposes, I was his son, but it was also like a, quote, romantic sexual relationship. Teddy was being groomed and Teddy was being abused, but I don't think even today Teddy sees it like that.
Right. He's talking about how he was able to travel the world and he saw things that people never see. He says, I touched Jesus's tomb with my bare hand.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not going to assign things to Teddy. It sounds to me that he's just trying to justify what happened to him in some way.
But he also has a fondness for this guy. And then like Teddy, they separate at some point. Teddy gets married and has kids. And then in 1999, he reunites with this Crissell guy. And like Crissell buys Teddy and his wife and his kids a house and like hires Teddy to work at his business. And in the home he bought for Teddy, he has like a dedicated bedroom that he can come and sleep in whenever he wants.
Right. And Teddy has young children.
2 10-year-old boys. They're twins.
Of course, because this is the cycle of abuse, this Leonard guy, the predator, was abusing Teddy's children. They're 10-year-old twins.
For years and years and years. This went on for a very long time under Teddy's nose, and he didn't know about it.
He didn't?
He says he didn't.
Okay. I'm watching the cycle of abuse unfold is all I'm saying.
Yeah. I know. Look, I'm with you. Like Teddy, it's very complicated because Teddy didn't see what happened to him necessarily as abuse. So I guess, I don't know. I have no defense for it. I want Crissell to burn in hell with everybody else in this documentary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This Leonard creep guy was charged and pled guilty. He got 10 years. Now, with all of this information, the cops are like, now, wait a second. Like, maybe Teddy is involved because
maybe he was the 11-year-old. Because the thing about the Lyon sisters' parents is they say there's absolutely no way the girls would have left them all with an older kid. So maybe somebody at Teddy's age who was 11, right in between the girls were 10 and 12, maybe they would have trusted him and he could have lured them away for any number of the predators we've talked to about so far in this documentary.
Right. So July 2014, this is Lloyd Welch's 4th interrogation session.
Yeah.
And now a new piece of shit has entered the chat. Lloyd mentions Uncle Dickie Welch. Who's a security guard who worked very close to the mall. And now Lloyd is like, well, he probably used his security badge to like trick the girls, right?
So, but like now the new story is like, it's again, forget everything else I just said. Yeah. The new story is Uncle Dickie used cousin Teddy to lure the girls away from the mall. Like now Dickie's the mastermind and Teddy's involved.
But most importantly, in this story,
the vehicle that was used was Uncle Dick's Ford station wagon.
Teddy got him to go outside. We all left.
At that point, Lloyd's putting himself in the car with the girls for the first time. It essentially locks him into at least a kidnapping charge.
Lloyd is in the car with them,
right?
Which at the very least is now a kidnapping charge. And that kidnapping led to murder, so Lloyd's in trouble.
Just again, he's now put himself, after making this one ridiculous fake statement to try to get reward money in 1975, this piece of shit has now put himself at the scene of the kidnapping, in the car, having helped kidnap the girls, and also witnessing the rape and abuse of the girls in the basement.
Right.
He's been there for all of it.
And now the basement is Uncle Dickie's basement, not Ray the creep's basement.
Right. Fam, Jillian's worked up a legit.
I'm just like,
I know.
It's so easy to not be a horrible person. It's easier than you think, honestly.
Why not here for your shit, Katie, is so annoying. Because she knows that they're eventually going to get to the truth, but they got to go through a year of listening to this piece of shit's lies.
And Katie also spoke to the women he abused, too. So now Katie has the weight of that also.
Totally.
So it's just like everything's the worst. So this family, Lloyd's family, the Welch family, they own this enormous property in Virginia.
Yeah.
And Lloyd is like, that's where Sheila and Katherine Lyon ended up.
Now, interestingly, we learned there actually was a sighting in 1975 in this town of Thaxton, Virginia. A tip was called in. Somebody saw 2 girls in the back of a station wagon being covered up by a blanket. And the location of this sighting was en route to Thaxton, Virginia, which is where the Lloyd's family farm or whatever is.
Right.
So So like Detective Dave is like, it kind of all is starting to line up here.
So they this is a huge family, the Welch family.
Oh my God, we're about to meet every last fucking one of them.
So by September 14th, the cops get a wiretap.
Yeah.
And on this wiretap, we learned that Uncle Dickie's wife is telling everyone to shut the fuck up and stop talking about it.
Anybody comes up to you, don't talk. I'm not going to mention anybody's name, Mom.
I knew you were tapping my phone. I don't have to talk on my phone. We knew they were on the block. They were on every corner. I used to wave to them. My brother used to give them the finger. We watched them put the camera up in front of the house on the telephone pole.
Patty's telling everyone to keep their mouths shut about all the shitty stuff they did because we are told that this family is enormous and they have roots in Taylor's Mountain, Virginia, which is very, very, very rural. A lot of bad things happen on this mountain. People say they were a classic Appalachian clan. And I'm like, is this classic Appalachian? I don't want anyone to come for me.
I know.
Especially not the entities in the woods.
Now, this is a whole thing we've been through in the past.
That is their quote. I'm not saying this is classic Appalachian shit with incest and all these horrible things happening on the mountain. Those are not my words. With this family, it's pretty fucking typical, and I hope they all rot in hell forever and ever.
I just want to ask you again, because in past episodes, you've been the expert on this. We do not look in the woods in Appalachia.
No.
Isn't that the whole point of being there?
No.
Have you ever?
Appalachia.
Okay.
And everyone say it with me. If you think you saw something, no, you didn't.
No.
If you think you heard something, no, you didn't.
So it's like Appalachia is full of like the mafia of the mountains.
No, scarier.
Oh.
They have like mimics and they have like...
What's a mimic?
Look it up. It's terrifying.
Give me an example.
It's like, have you ever heard someone call your name but you're home alone?
Uh-huh.
But it's always like a voice you know? That's a mimic.
What?
So sometimes a mimic can be like, it'll be Steve and you're like, but Steve's at the gym. And then you see Steve like washing dishes or something.
What?
Yeah. Sorry, everyone. Look up mimics. They're really, really scary. If you believe in that shit, mimics are absolutely terrifying. But people in Appalachia will hear shit like knocking on your doors or windows. Just don't even.
How do you know this?
TikTok. Which is, am I taking it with a pound of salt? Yes.
Okay. Mimics? I have to go through the rest of my life knowing about mimics
I
now?
know.
You did that to me.
I ruined Mike's day the other day when I told him about it.
You're just out there in the world telling
If
people
I
about
have to
mimics.
know about it.
But that's not fair.
I know. I'm not saying it's fair.
I
I'm
liked
not
it
saying
better
I'm
when you had-
enjoying it. I'm not saying there's anything good about any of this, honestly. This is just the world we happen to live in.
I liked it better when you had all your apps blocked because of you, I'm on Alligator Talk and I have to watch all these stupid people with their bikes in the woods trying to get past alligators.
Someone's going to get killed saying, I saw it on TikTok. I can walk by a fucking alligator in the swamp. And no, you can't.
No.
Everyone's an idiot, including the Welch family. We're back.
Wait, Nick, can we get Everyone's an Idiot merch? We need it immediately.
But it's easy not to. And you know when I say everyone, you know who I'm talking to. Not you, dear listener. No. But the other guy.
Yeah. And especially the mimics.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Do they I don't know.
I don't know.
But our phones are you'll be on Mimic Talk on your way home.
No.
I know, I'm sorry.
Very morning, I was working at 4 a.m. in the office, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw Steve walk by, but I knew he couldn't have because I had just seen him in bed 30 seconds ago.
Some people would tell you that's a mimic. Other people would be like, that happens to everybody all the time. That's not a thing.
We have to burn the house down as soon as I get home. I cannot live there.
They might follow you. It doesn't matter. So...
We got to talk about Patricia for 5 seconds. Patricia is the daughter of Patty and Dick. She's here. She's a piece of work. She wants us to know that they all knew the phones were being tapped and she watched them put up the camera in front of there. You can't get anything past Patricia.
All right, cool. Okay. So this is a family that was filled with abuse. Adults were preying on their own kids. And all the kids are at risk.
Like their own kids, but then like their siblings' children as well. Every child was at risk.
Nothing was ever reported because it's one of those families where you just don't want to upset them in any way.
It's also apparently one of those towns. So Taylor's Mountain is adjacent to a town called Bedford, Virginia.
And to the local police, Taylor's Mountain was always kind of a no-go area.
There's a lot of moonshiners, a lot of ridge runners. Bedford Sheriff's Office won't be happy when I tell you this, but they were afraid to come up on that mountain. Back in those days, they didn't come up on that mountain.
The police were too afraid to go up to the mountain.
Because you probably wouldn't come back. I mean, honestly, the amount of
How is
people
it? Call in the National Guard. Like, what?
The amount of people who are probably buried on that mountain, the shit that you would uncover on that mountain is terrifying.
But it's that daughter, Patricia, who's saying what happens on the mountain stays on the mountain. And I'm like, right, but that's not how living in a civilized society works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No. I mean, now, I think maybe today, because the cops end up, spoiler everyone, like, go to the mountain and try to dig it up.
Mm-hmm.
But we just learn about endless abuse when, the kids are 8, 9 years old, endless abuse. The cops say this is a hive of predators.
Yes.
Is how it's described.
And there's bodies everywhere. Like, we meet neighbors who aren't related to the Welch family, and they're like, yeah, they were always burning stuff. It always smelled like flesh and hair. Like, there's bodies everywhere.
There are homemade grave sites. The cops are like, there are 30 grave sites.
Yeah, so the cops are like, fuck this, we're going in. And they're like, they say to the across the street neighbors, like, what are y'all looking for? And they're like, I don't know, bodies. And they're like, oh, there's bodies right at the top of the hill
right
there.
Over there.
Yeah.
Next to the Mimic, you idiots. These fucking big city cops over here don't know about fucking, whatever.
Right next to the Mimics. I can't handle it.
I know, it's crazy. So it's September 2014, and this is happening very quickly, right? Like, every month there's something big. There's another interview with this Lloyd guy, or he's a person of interest, or the minute they find something, they're tapping the phones. Like, they're on it.
Yes.
So September 2014, the cops start searching the property. The cops are sure that Sheila and Katherine Lyon are buried here. Hundreds of people are involved. The cops, the state police, finally everyone's showing up.
I mean, like, restaurants are donating food. Colleges are donating transportation.
Right. Now, we meet Connie Akers. She was a teenager at the time of the abduction, and she says something very important here. She remembers Lloyd and his girlfriend Helen coming to their house, and she says that Helen was pregnant at the time. The cops are able to confirm that this is true, which gives a lot of weight to Connie's story.
They're able to confirm that Helen was pregnant at the time of the abduction.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of things are lining up. I gotta say, Connie Akers also comes to the cops willingly. Like, there are definitely members of this family that are trying to do the right thing.
And I think they're happy we have, like, 100 people here to help us.
Yes.
Like, maybe it's not so scary anymore to start telling the truth.
Yes.
So Connie says Lloyd at the house was carrying a green duffel bag, like an army duffel bag.
The duffel bag was packed. Lloyd, I remember him opening it up, and it was such a foul smell. And I asked him, why are your clothes so bloody? And he said that they had bought beef and was going to camp on the side of the road and cook it, but the beef went bad.
Hamburger meat. We thought, okay, here we go. That wasn't hamburger meat in the bag.
Don't mind my rotting hamburger meat in my duffel bag. And Connie's like, are you what?
Because the people, like, Lloyd shows up and drops this duffel bag in front of 4 people. It's himself, Helen, his wife, Connie, who's here telling the cops this now, and Connie's brother, Henry. They all see this. It's bloody, it stinks, and, like, it's clearly, like, something awful is going on in there.
So Connie's brother confirms what Connie said, and that's a very big deal, all things considered, because there are 800 people here and they're all lying.
Not to mention the fact it's a big deal. I thought you would love this. Connie and Henry don't speak to each other because of a dispute over an inheritance.
It's a nightmare.
I know how much that works you up.
It's so stupid.
It's so stupid.
It's so stupid.
I know.
It's like,
and they all end up with nothing. But, like, they hadn't spoken in years. So when the cops talk to both of them separately, they both separately are like, yeah, that guy Lloyd
exactly
and Helen showed up with the green bag basically full of bodies.
Now, also, however, that night there was a big bonfire. Everyone in like a 10-mile radius knows about the bonfire because it lasted a week.
Yes.
And all everyone can remember is the smell of stench and hair. Now, remember what Lloyd said in that first interview.
Yes.
He mentioned the girls' bodies being burned, and the cops were like, why the fuck would you mention that?
That statement alone is why we're here. It was that, like, if he hadn't said that, they probably would have been like, this guy made a statement 40 years ago, who cares? But it was that the specificity of that they're like, hang on, he knows something.
And now in all of these lies, there are little pieces of them that are being confirmed true.
Yes.
Like the bonfire. So they're like, okay, this has to be connected. So they dig where the bonfire was. A bonfire for a week, 24 hours a day?
Yeah.
And a stench?
It was 40 years ago, but they do find some significant things. They find a piece of wire that looks like it could have belonged to one of Sheila's glasses. They find remnants of a beaded bracelet, which they knew Katherine was wearing at the time that she disappeared. And they find human bone fragments.
Yes.
These are confirmed to be human bone fragments. So even if it's not Katherine or Sheila, they burned somebody in that bonfire.
Yeah, like we finally have some physical evidence.
Yeah.
At the end of 2014, when the lab reports came back on the bits and pieces that they found at the burn site, none of it could be convincingly linked to the Lyon sisters.
The bones were degraded where we were not able to extract DNA from them.
None of it could be convincingly linked to the Lyon sisters.
Because it's too degraded, they can't get any DNA. Like that, it's not that they are ruled out. It's that it's been out there too long and it was burned too thoroughly to get any DNA from it. So they've got nothing.
And meanwhile, cousin Teddy is back.
Oh my God!
He proves that he had broken both of his arms a month before the abduction. He was 11 years old.
I know.
He definitely is not involved. Bye, Teddy.
I'm sorry.
I hope you feel better about everything.
Like, can we gotta tell you how he broke his arms? They were playing frisbee or something, and the frisbee got stuck on a roof. He climbed the roof to get the frisbee and fell off.
I mean, that is a 1970s kid story if I've ever heard one. That doesn't happen anymore.
I know.
That only happened between 72 and 79
Kids
and then
don't go
never happened
outside
again.
anymore. They've got Xbox now.
There's a very small window for you to break both your arms getting a frisbee off a roof, and it's 72 to 79.
72 to 79.
Maybe 73, but that's it.
Yeah, maybe to 81, but by then we had Atari. The thing about it is Teddy's like, listen, these girls were abducted from a mall. If you think that everybody there wouldn't remember the gawky, awkward teenager in a basically full-body cast
There's no way.
trying to lure these girls away.
But it's like Lloyd, now we know that Lloyd is also a bad liar.
Exactly.
Because he just doesn't think that his best friend Dave is going to look into his cousin who was 11 at the time and had 2 broken arms. Like,
the other thing too that they say at some point is that they loaded them into Teddy's Camaro. Teddy was 11. He didn't have a Camaro.
Shut up, Lloyd.
I know. But
or
also
not.
Keep talking.
Or not, because January 2015, Lloyd's 5th interrogation. Now they're trying to get Lloyd to admit he actually traveled to Virginia.
Yeah.
They need to place him in Virginia.
Just as a reminder, they need to put him in Virginia because that's where he brought the duffel bag full of like the blood and the bodies, honestly.
Now, this is great. What happens is they get him to finally say, yeah, there was a pretty strong possibility I went to Virginia.
Yeah.
Now, Detective Dave goes, cool. What did you use to carry all your shit in? Like, just curious.
Duffel bag.
Do you remember what the bag looked like?
It was a green duffel bag. It was my old Army duffel bag. That son of a bitch was packed too. People go to pick that up to help throw it up in the car, and they're like, oh my God!
I think you know where I'm going with this.
I had bodies in there. Come on.
Lloyd even made jokes to the cops in that 5th interview. He's like, yeah, what'd you think, Dave? What'd you think I had bodies in the back?
Right, yeah.
Burgers after this, right, Dave?
Lloyd has never had a friend like Dave.
Love you, Dave.
I love you,
And
man.
it's all fake.
It's all fake. Dave is great. Dave arguably has the hardest job of anybody because he's got to pretend to like the guy.
Forever.
At least, like not
for
here.
this endless conversation.
Not here for your shit, Katie's like, I'm not doing it this time, guys. I don't have it in me. I can't.
And so, but Dave, the cops are like, don't laugh, Lloyd. Your family's testifying to some shit. So I'd be careful about the jokes about the body in the bag because we know you did it.
So this is where Dave turns on Lloyd, and this is where Officer Mark comes in to sit down and say, Lloyd, I want to let you know I've cataloged all of your lies here. I call this the reasonable person approach. And he says, first you told us you never talked to the cops and that you didn't see anything. Then you said you did see Ray Molesky take the girls. You thought about it, then did go speak to the cops and did see something. Then it wasn't Molesky, it was your cousin Teddy. And then it wasn't your cousin Teddy, it was your Uncle Dickie. But then it was also cousin Teddy and Uncle Dickie. Yeah. And you forgot the fact that Teddy had 2 broken arms and was just 11.
Lloyd hates this. Lloyd gets up. It's all theater. This conversation's over. And he goes to open the door and he's like, no, but wait, like, what else do you know?
Exactly.
No.
We're back to he can't actually storm out because he needs to know what they know, even though he doesn't realize by this point he's placed himself at the scene of the abduction, actually in the car during the kidnapping.
And as a witness.
And transporting the bodies and throwing it on the fire.
Now we're really playing chess.
Yeah.
Because now we're at the 6th interview and Detective Katie's like, I'm going to trick this son of a bitch.
Yeah. Oh, Katie's so good.
Now, Detective Katie says,
we had decided that we would tell Lloyd that we found a journal that Helen was writing things in.
I never knew she wrote a journal.
Well, she didn't, I don't think, when she was with you. It was very clear that you were the love of her life.
Now he offered up new details that he was worried might have been in Helen's diary.
Helen's diary? Well, I'll tell you the story. You don't have to read her diary. Like, I'll just tell it because there's definitely not anything valuable in that diary. You probably should not read it at all. Let me okay, Cousin Teddy. It goes back to Cousin Teddy, says Lloyd. Which we know can't be true because he was 11 and had 2 broken arms.
And it's like, we've met Teddy 800 times now, and like, he's just a pussycat of a math teacher, but Lloyd still needs us to believe he's a diabolical axe murderer.
Right. So now his story is, my Uncle Dickie was driving the car. We all get in the car, me and Uncle Dick and my girlfriend Helen and Katherine and Sheila. And Dick asks, me and my girlfriend to babysit the girls. We did. Everything was fine.
Yep.
Puppies and rainbows. We were all playing. Dick paid us for babysitting, and I never saw the 2 girls again.
Yeah.
The end. No, that's a lie.
Right. So, like, once again, it's lie after lie after lie with, like, a truth here and there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Now, by the seventh interrogation, which is May 2015, at this point, the cops are like, we don't have to prove he killed the Lyon sisters, just that he played a role in their abduction, which he clearly did.
Yes.
Because even in his lies, he's part of it. He's never once said, I wasn't in the car, I was never there. He made himself involved.
Right.
No matter what the truth is.
And so they sit him down and they're saying,
the strategy was to make Lloyd aware of potential charges in Virginia, which would open him up to the death penalty.
We didn't necessarily have to prove that he killed the sisters, but simply played a role in their abduction. His admissions got us that far.
You were there when they were kidnapped. You were there at the mall. You were there in the car when they were kidnapped. You watched them being drugged and raped. You transported their bodies to Virginia and put their bodies in a bag and threw it on a fire. Like, we got you on all of it.
And Lloyd's like, interesting. Have you met my father, Lee, by any chance? Lee has now entered the chat.
Lee has now entered the chat. It was actually his father, Lee, who killed the girls.
It was his father and his uncle did it now.
Yes.
And Helen's journal, I'm sure, will corroborate this.
The thing is, it's like, even though the cops have all of this, like, speculation, like, they're telling him they can get him on the death penalty, but they probably actually can't. And so now he's saying, it was my father, Lee, who did this, and I'll tell you where he dismembered the bodies. He had a favorite fishing spot under the bridge. It's right over here. Detective Dave is like, I'm going to go check this out.
Yeah.
It's 40 years later, but I'm going to see what I can see.
The thing that's so frustrating about this is that they know 90% of the time Lloyd is lying, but the 10% he's telling the truth, and that's what they need. So when he sends them to Hyattsville, Maryland, to this lake, they're going to go.
Yeah.
Because that might be one of the things that are true. Unfortunately, it was an elaborate waste of time.
Well, until it isn't, right?
Until it isn't.
Because what happens is Dave gets to the bridge. He's like, there's no place here you could dismember a body that you wouldn't be seen. Like, this didn't happen. This is just a fucking lie.
And Dave is like, God damn it. Dave can't take much more of this shit.
No, it's been 40 years.
And he's like, he's so fucking mad.
So as Dave is leaving that location under the bridge, he sees a house in front of him. It's a house he has seen in the files before.
You gotta be kidding me. 4714 Baltimore Avenue. That's Lloyd's family hood house that he grew up in. It looked exactly like the photo we had from 75.
It's in all of the crime scene video. Like, it's in all of the case files.
He's like, I've seen this house a million times. It's the house that Lloyd grew up in.
It's the house that it's Lloyd's house.
And so they're like, okay, so he's lying about the fishing.
Yes.
But he's telling the truth about the area because he put Detective Dave basically in his house.
So Dave is like, I'm going to go check out the house. He knocks on the door. The person who lives there now, like, answers. He's like, I need to see the basement.
Because remember, Lloyd said the girls were being abused in a room in the basement, and this door could be entered through the backyard.
You could only get into the basement through the backyard. And the woman, and remember,
Imagine being the woman who lives there.
Right, I know. I mean, I've thought about that. But Lloyd is saying it was either my Uncle Dickie's house or it was Ray Molesky's house. Definitely wasn't my house.
But then he's like, oh, but my father's involved. You see what he's doing?
Exactly.
Like, in all of these interviews, he keeps saying a little bit more, and then we're getting closer to the truth.
Yes.
So he's saying it wasn't my house, but my dad was there.
Right.
And now it's like, no, your dad is your dad's house.
Right. So he's at his dad's house, and the lady says to him, like, if you want to see the basement, you can only enter from the back. He walks around to the back of the house, and he sees it's a couple of steps down. It is the exact basement Lloyd has been describing this entire time.
Detective Dave says, it's like I was living his statement. Like I was walking through it.
He walks into the basement, sees where that back room was. He's like, this is it. This
It's
is
like a
the room.
dungeon down
Yes,
there.
it's a dungeon. He brings in a forensics team and they do the luminol thing where they, they spray for blood. They turn on the purple light or whatever, and the whole place lights up. Like something they say was slaughtered in that back room.
And we learn, one of our experts says...
Just to be clear, this is Lloyd's house.
Lloyd's house.
Yeah.
And one of our experts says...
When people lie, they lie about the big things, the important things, but they flesh out the lie with the truth. You have to ignore the forest and pay attention to the trees.
It's not about the forest, it's about the trees.
Yeah.
And in my experience with liars, it's absolutely correct.
Yes.
That's what happens.
Of course.
So, May 2015, they get down there and spray for blood. Again, what are you thinking if you're the owner of this house?
Oh my God, you have to move.
You have to move.
Yeah.
And so, May 2015, interrogation number 8, lawyerless interrogation yet again.
I know.
Now, this is where Detective Dave is like, this is my time to shine. He's laying it on thick. They are best friends. Lloyd, I always really liked you. Oh, Lloyd's like, Dave, really? Maybe we could go out for some milkshakes or something after this? Like, I am going to be on parole soon, as you know. And Detective Dave is going to take advantage of the fact that Lloyd always really liked him.
Yeah.
And so Dave's like, you know what, Lloyd? It's time for you. Like, you got to take control of your life, friend.
Yes.
Take control of your narrative. Like, come on, Lloyd. Like, we've been through so much. The best thing you could do for yourself and for the case and for me, your best friend, is just take control of the narrative. Just tell, like, what happened.
And this is where I think we get the most truth.
I agree.
We get. And what Lloyd says is that his Uncle Dickie wanted to make, quote, porn for money.
Child sexual abuse videos and imagery.
That's what he needed the young girls for. He wanted to make like child sexual abuse images of the girls and sell them on the mountain.
Up on the mountain.
And Lloyd is saying, I was the sucker that my Uncle Dickie sent to go get the girls.
Right.
And then he says, one of the girls tried to get away. And this is where it all kind of starts to fall apart.
Because the cops also drop a bomb on Lloyd. They're like,
The basement at your old house on Baltimore Avenue. Unfinished. Not only is it still there, it doesn't look like it's changed. We went in that basement yesterday and we sprayed it with a chemical and we came all with blood. Point blank. Hey, this is what we physically found. And I think at that point he realized, they found it.
we were there.
Exactly.
And you led us there.
Yes.
So let's go.
And Lloyd says the younger one tried to get away. So, and then we're not going to get into the details, but he says Uncle Dickie killed her in that back room and then was trying to dismember the body. And that's why it's so bloody. I think it was Lloyd who did this. I don't think it was Uncle Dickie who did that.
Because Lloyd says, and then the body parts were put in his green army bag.
Yes. But now the older daughter, the 12-year-old, is not killed.
Yeah. The cops think that the girl who was dismembered is Katherine.
Yes.
So now we need to learn about Sheila, and we don't know.
We don't know, but they speculate that Sheila actually was taken to the house in Virginia.
Yes.
Held for like God only fucking knows how long.
So the thing is, though, Lloyd has now confessed to being involved in every single part of the crime.
Yeah.
From the abduction, in all of these 8-9 interrogations, from the abduction to the abuse to the murder, in all of these interviews, he's confessed to every single part of it.
And in every interview, it's more. It's like,
more.
I didn't see anything, then I saw it. I didn't help take the girls, but now I saw it and I helped take the girls.
Right. And he introduced that duffel bag.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like he did this.
Right.
So Lloyd is now charged with first-degree felony murder. This case would be a lot better if Lloyd would just admit that he drove the duffel bag to Virginia.
Yeah.
Right now, the story is that Uncle Dickie was driving. But finally, in interrogation number 9, he's like,
They took the bag and put it in the car and told me to take it down to Virginia. And Henry would be down there waiting with a fire. And to throw the bag on the fire. I don't know what Dickie did with the car after that. I know as soon as I came back, they cleaned it up. Dickie drove off the car.
I drove there. And he said that it was set up by Dickie, that like Dickie said, drive the duffel bag down to Virginia. We're going to do that week-long bonfire. So make sure you toss the bag into the bonfire.
9 interrogations, never a call for a lawyer.
Never a call. And they get him on everything.
So September 12th, 2017, Lloyd pleads guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. He gets 48 years for each sister, 48 years for Katherine, 48 years for Sheila. He never admits to raping and killing them himself. But again, his narrative over all these years places him at every step of the crime.
Yeah, and it's just like the Sheila part of it is really sad because, I mean, obviously the Katherine part, we don't really know what happened to her. We believe that her body was burned in that duffel bag on the fire. They don't believe that that's what happened to Sheila. They think that Sheila was held for however long she was held and that her body is actually buried up there somewhere on the mountain.
Yeah. So after 40 years, they convict someone of these awful crimes. They did it without the bodies, which is huge.
Yes.
And this is that quote that like blew my mind, where someone says, the investigators were able to piece together the truth while talking to someone who only told them lies.
Yes.
Which I think is like unbelievable. Put that on the poster for this documentary.
Yes, and after he completes his 2 48-year sentences in Maryland, he'll be sent to Virginia where he gets another 40 years.
Also, Lloyd was about to be paroled in like a week.
I know.
And this put a stop to all that.
I know.
And good. I'm glad his conscience ate him alive.
Thank God.
I mean,
yeah.
So, but obviously, like, there are more people involved. This family is awful. Everyone knows something. Everyone is covering it up. We hear them talking about that on the wiretap, that everyone's like, keep your fucking mouth shut.
I know.
What else do they know? How many people, how many unsolved crimes and murders are they a part of that we just won't know about?
Yeah.
Because all of the other people involved are mostly dead. And that's when Detective Katie is like, this is just all really unfair.
For me, I feel like there's many bad guys still out floating around on this case that got good lives. These 2 little girls were tortured and their family was tortured and will be tortured until the day they die. And that just seems really unfair to me.
We kind of don't have any answers. Like, who's happy about this? And I'm like, Katie, not me, girl.
No, girl.
Let's go commiserate over Cosmos or whatever. Like, it's the worst. Like, it's the worst.
It's the worst.
But also, I do want to say, it ends with on-screen text saying that the producers of this documentary and some participants made contributions to NCMEC.
Yes.
In the names of Katherine and Sheila Lyon. And that's what I did today, too.
Oh,
I got
the
inspired by them.
the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Yeah.
Good on you, GP.
Thanks.
Oh my God, girl! We did Who Killed the Lyon Sisters?
I know.
This is a wild
crazy.
one.
It really shows though, like just the investigation. I thought was so fascinating.
Incredible.
It's so easy to get so frustrated with someone who's just lying over and over and sending you on these wild goose chases. But we did it the best they could.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Fam, I'd like to encourage you to join us on the Patreon. For $5 a month or higher, you get monthly drag bingo. We're doing virtual happy hour sometimes.
Yep.
You get over 450 full ad-free bonus episodes to download and binge. You know how The Queen of Versailles was the second thing we ever did?
Yes.
They're making a musical out of it with Kristen Chenoweth. It's coming to Broadway. I'm going to go see it in Boston. I'm dying.
Oh my God.
Also, join our Facebook group. It's the True Crime Obsessed podcast discussion group. Come make new friends. Come, learn about all of the things we have going on. That's where we make a lot of our announcements.
Yeah.
What are we doing next, girl?
We are doing What Happened to Valentino Dixon on
Ooh.
Discovery Plus. It's a wrongful conviction. There's a talented artist and a golf magazine involved.
Okay. Remember when we learned that golf was the straightest sport?
It's not.
No?
A lot of lesbians golf. It's not.
Yeah.
And
You're
when
right.
we're put
You're
on
right.
the spot here, we get a lot of things wrong. But we can never think of anything.
Curling?
You asked me to do something, and I was
know.
like, I don't know anything. I can't think. What's my name? I can't pick I don't know what a number is. I can't. In the moment, we were kind of put on the spot, but golf isn't that strange.
No? All right. Well, then forget about it. All right, fam. We love you. We
love you.
Bye.
Bye.
It was a popular hangout, but this night, trouble was brewing.
They jumped out the car and started shooting. Imagine gunshots being let off on a continuous basis. It's as though it's a Hollywood scene. I'm looking like, wow, what the hell just happened?
We found 27 spent shell casings from the machine gun.
We went out there and played detective.
At 11 o'clock, there's a guy on the phone. He basically said, I want to confess to the murders the other night.
I have seen a lot of confessions, but I have never seen what happened in this case.
A murderer was finding some sort of salvation in drawing golf courses. That really blew my mind.
I was learning more and more about what kind of injustice could have possibly happened. And I'm like, this is horrible.
These people, because Uncle Dickie is Uncle Dickie still alive?
Hopefully not.
Okay. Okay. Is he burning his house?
He was very ill before. And I'm like, I hope he's fucking dead.
Well, yes.
Oh my God, I thought there was gum underneath this table for a second. It's a screw. Sorry, I was like...
You know what? I don't put it past Daisy Judith.
Like,
anything is possible in here.
what?
I know.